Alright, hey everybody. We're going to be making dinner again. We're making vegan pizza for dinner. It's going to be half vegan, half vegetarian. One side's going to have some goat cheese on it for my wife. But yeah, we're going to have that for dinner. So let's get started. This is all going to be basically from scratch. I make pizza, I don't know, every month or so. It's tasty and it's a pretty easy recipe if you got a little bit of time on your hands. We're going to make the dough to start. We're going to make that from scratch. So let's get started. We're going to use this KitchenAid to do it. This is one of my prized kitchen appliances because these are like, you know, $500, $600 to get this pro version of the KitchenAid. 575 watts, 6-quart metal bowl, thingy-majigger up and down. I got this for free, I think, because when I was at MIT, there's this list that this mailing list you could post if you had something you wanted to give away. And this guy said, I have this nice KitchenAid, but it makes a clinky noise, so I'm going to get rid of it because I think it's breaking. So I took it off his hands and took the top off and took all the gears out and looked for anything that could be making noise and didn't find anything, put it all back together, and it hasn't made a clinky noise since. Works perfectly for years, so I'm so glad I have this. And whoever gave this away is watching, which is extremely unlikely. Thank you for giving it away. I have put it to great use. Alright, so we're going to use this to mix up the dough. It's way easier than kneading the dough by hand, so it makes these recipes way more accessible for your dinners. I'm just going to use this pizza dough recipe that came with a bread maker. I have a bread maker that could mix up the dough and let it rise in the bread maker and stuff, but it's really inefficient at mixing. So the bread maker is going to take 15 minutes to knead the dough, whereas this will do it in 5 minutes or something. So I'm going to use this instead to be a little quicker. All right, so I'm going to I'll make a medium size here. So what's this recipe call for? It calls for 3 cups of flour. So we'll get our big old pot of flour. This container that I keep my flour in, I absolutely love having a big container I can just keep my flour in on my counter. So I don't have to mess with a big bag. I only have to refill it every once in a while. You put a whole 5-pound bag of flour in here, it's great. It's got this nice rubber seal here, so it's airtight even though it opens and closes really easily. So I love this thing. I bought it because I won this puppy, this jar, which is the baby version of it that I keep my sugar in a jelly bean. How many jelly beans are in this jar guessing contest at my dorm when I was in college? And I think I got it within a couple, 2 or 3 or something, very close. So I was very happy. I got that, and I started putting stuff in it when I got my first apartment, and I said I need a bigger one of these for my flour, so I bought one. So now I have the matching set for my sugar and my flour. Anyways, I almost did this recipe wrong. You're making a dough. You're gonna get your yeast activated before you mix in all your flour. So this calls for a cup of water, and it calls for some yeast and stuff. So let's do that first. It's good to have 2 sets at least of your core measuring cups. Because, for example, right now I have to measure out water first, which is a wet ingredient. It's going to get my measuring cup all wet. So then I would have to dry it off before I went in and got my flour. But since I have 2, I'm just going to use this one for my wet ingredient, my water in, and I'm just going to put that over there to dry and put away later. And I didn't even get it dirty. So in goes the water, and then we're going to put in some sugar to feed the yeast. Just some sugar. There we go. Doesn't have to be too precise. We're going to put in the yeast. This is calling for 1 3/4 teaspoon. I should buy some new yeast. You're supposed to replace this stuff every 6 months apparently, even if you refrigerate it. But I've had this for a year probably. It's fine, it's still working. I should probably get some new stuff soon, so I'm not going through it fast enough. Alright, so it said 1 3/4 teaspoons. There we go. Just a little. This is a 3/4 teaspoon thing because my teaspooner is dirty, and I also normally have multiple teaspoon measuring devices, but I accidentally put one through the garbage disposal today, so I'm down to n-1 of these things. Okay, so I'm just going to whisk this water and sugar and yeast together. I used warm water, by the way, because you want to bring that yeast out of its hibernation. That's why you refrigerate it. It's like a living organism, and you want it to be hibernating in the fridge. So it lives, at least, apparently 6 months or longer. Okay, so that's there. Got my sugar, got my yeast, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to let this rise for a second, or let the yeast... it's still kind of clumpy. Maybe that's another reason you want to get fresher yeast. It's maybe a little bit clumpier if you let it get old. I'm going to get my little mini whisk out, and just really whisk that yeast in. Alright. That should do it. So let's talk about how we're going to let this dough rise. So typically you'd want to let your dough rise till it's doubled in size. That's the classic thing for pretty much all risen, ready type recipes you make. That usually takes around an hour. A lot of times they'll say let it double about an hour. But I don't have that kind of time. I don't want to wait that long to eat my dinner. So what I'm going to do is preheat my oven slightly. So I'm just going to make, if you can let your dough rise in a warm environment, it's going to rise a lot faster. Obviously not too warm, you don't want to kill your yeast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my oven. I'm going to move my my water back down so that I can fit this whole bowl into the oven. And then I'm going to set my oven to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry, I do Celsius all day at work. So this is the lowest temperature my oven will go to. I'm kind of interested. I want to look up why 170 is the lowest temperature that my oven will go to. Is it to do with is there a specific thing you cook where you want it to be at 170 C? I don't know what that would be. Is it like a pasteurization? Is it like a temperature that'll kill stuff? Is it just the lowest temperature that the oven manufacturers think they can reliably control the oven temperature to? Which I have a hard time believing, but I wonder why that is, how that number came to be. Maybe I'll look that up later and let you guys know if I figure it out. Anyway, 170 degrees Fahrenheit is still hotter than I would like it to be. I think probably, ideally, you want it to be probably around body temperature, because yeast is an organism and everybody likes to live at body temperature. So I'm just going to turn it on and let it sit there for a minute or two while it preheats, and I'm going to turn it off, and that'll have warmed up that environment a bunch. So basically now you can use your oven as a proofing oven, which is nice if you don't have a proofing oven, and who does in their kitchens, unless you're a professional chef. Or proofing drawer, I guess would be the more appropriate term. Apparently that drawer at the bottom of your oven where everybody keeps their cookie trays and whatnot is a proofing drawer. You can, I guess, originally in ovens, and probably not so much now, people know that they're using them for storage now. The idea would be you'd have this little chamber beneath your oven so that when you're preheating your oven to cook a bread or something, that little compartment underneath would be warm just by being near the oven compartment, and then you'd be able to proof your dough in it. So I'd love to put like a thermometer in there and see what temperature it gets into when you actually preheat your oven to, bread baking temperature, and see if like a modern oven is still appropriate to use that drawer for proofing, or if it gets too hot, or if it's too cold, or whatever. Anyway, especially like this time of year when it's not particularly warm out and your house isn't particularly warm, you can just accelerate your proofing by heating your oven up a little bit. So it looks like my yeast has gotten nice and bubbly in here, so you can tell that the yeast has been activated because it's starting to bubble. It's producing CO2 and that's bubbling up your liquid. So I'm going to add my other ingredients in and start mixing it. However, I think that the oven has probably warmed up enough, even just while I've been talking. So I'm just going to, yeah, that's very nice. Okay. So I'm just going to turn the oven off now. There's plenty of heat. It's just going to stay warm in there. My general gauge, if it's too hot for my dough, is if I can touch the inside of the oven, like the trays, the oven racks, if I can touch the oven rack with my finger without burning myself, or without it being too uncomfortable, that's my gauge that it's the right temperature. I think the pain limit for humans is like 45 C. I don't know what that translates to in Fahrenheit, but body temperature in Celsius is 37 C. So you can withstand roughly 10 degrees C above your body temperature. Happy Friday to you too, Mom, I assume. Okay, so that's warm. That's going to be ready for us. Let's put the dough in case you're just joining us. We're making pizza for dinner. So this recipe is going to call for 3 cups of flour. So let's put that in. 1 cup. And 2 cups. And 3 cups. I'm going to have to go to the store at some point. You can't order flour online. It's one of the things that is completely out of stock on all the online delivery services right now. Otherwise, we've been just ordering grocery delivery and sanitizing when stuff comes into our house. I guess if anybody's watching this video in like 10 years on YouTube, we're sanitizing our groceries because there's a global pandemic. Anyway, so it's 3 cups of flour. We're running low on flour. This also calls for 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Baking is a science, and you don't want to guess the amount of stuff that you put in, but that mostly refers to your wet and dry ratios, so you get the consistency right, and probably also your leavening agents, so I don't measure everything normally. And then the last ingredient is some extra virgin olive oil, 1.5 tablespoons, which is barely any. I'm going to use our nice olive oil, because why not? We're making an Italian pizza. Did you get the jelly bean? Yeah, I did get the jelly bean container from you, Dad. My dad was the head chef for the dining in my dorm in college, which was a pretty cushy deal. How much of this do I need? 1.5. Yeah, did I ever tell you, Dad? I don't know if you were here. I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the stream, but the flour container I bought that because I wanted a container to match my jelly bean container, and put my flour in it. Okay, that's all my ingredients. Normally you need to knead dough for like 10-ish minutes on the upper end. Maybe 5 minutes even is okay. This is going to knead your dough a lot quicker. So if your recipe calls for hand kneading your dough, but you're using a machine, I usually like halve the amount of time that I'm kneading it because it doesn't really need it. The other thing that I really like about, let's see if I can talk while this is on or if it's too loud. I kind of put this away from the mic. One of the things that I like about using a machine too is if you're kneading by hand, you're going to be inclined to add too much flour to your dough because you don't want the dough to stick to your hands. That's just going to make it hard to manipulate. But That's not true with the machine. The machine doesn't care if it's really sticky. And the dough's going to get less sticky the more you knead it. And so you're still going to end up with a dough that's not sticky at the end, but the machine isn't going to care that it was sticky in the beginning because it doesn't have any trouble manipulating the dough when it's wet. So I think you end up with better and more consistent dough when you use a machine. So I really like using machines. The end. Put my recipe away. It's coming together. I'll see if I can do like a dynamic shot. I don't normally do these. But here is the dough mixing. You can see that it's pretty dry right now. So I don't know if I need to add more moisture. We'll see how it comes together. I don't want my dough to be too dry, otherwise my final bread is going to be too dense, I think. We'll see. I might add a little bit, I think I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil, honestly. I think that's what I'm going to do. Because it only called for a tablespoon and a half, and that's like no olive oil. Like, why would you even bother? And honestly, I'm going to add a little bit more water. Yeah, it just looks too tight. Too tight. You don't want to like futz with your dough a lot at this stage. So if you want to add more moisture, I would recommend doing it early on as possible because I feel like it's easy for your dough. It's hard to incorporate the moisture once your dough has all the gluten transformed. You don't want to go like sticky again and then have to work it back into the non-sticky state. I feel like that kind of just slows everything down. So I'm just kind of gauging it at the beginning. This is looking much better now. I'll give you guys another quick peek at this. That's a lot more reasonable. I'm just going to go with this slow speed. It doesn't need to go too fast. What you're looking for in the end is for the dough to be really smooth looking and for it to not be too sticky. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I don't think I'm going to do any sides for dinner tonight. I'm all sided out, making sides, so, we're just going to let this mix. Let's see, it's 5:58 right now. Let this mix for like 2 or 3 more minutes, and I think we should be in a good spot. When it's done mixing, I'm just going to, pull it out of the container for a second and cook the container with a little bit of the bowl with a little bit of oil. And then I'm going to put some plastic wrap on top to keep the moisture in the container while the dough rises. But it's looking good, it's smelling good, I think this is going to be fine. Yeah, I don't know. What's everybody else on the stream having for dinner tonight? A. I've never heard of that. Must be Italian. I wonder what everybody on the stream is having for dinner tonight. I'm just turning it up for a second because there was a little bit of dough that wasn't getting a lot of turnover. So I'm just turning it up for a second to sort of break the lump up and then let it go back to mixing at a lower speed. Mediterranean bean bowl with spinach bland farro. That sounds pretty healthy. Is that like a microwave dinner? Where are you? I don't even know where you're staying, Dad. Where are you staying? Nice. I'm down for granola for dinner. There's no shame in that. If you don't see me post a video at night or stream anything, I'm probably having like cereal for dinner. So, what, like in a hotel or what? What they set you up in? Well, so are you just like eating microwave dinners for dinner? Alright, so the dough's good. You can tell it right away that it was kneaded pretty well because the dough hook came out without a bunch of residue on it, which means that you got it to a nice consistency. So I'm just going to put that in the sink. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to pop my dough out. I'm going to put my machine away. Clear off my counter space. We have a very small condo, but it has a surprisingly large kitchen for how small it is, which I really enjoy, and that was the big selling point for me. How are the grocery stores in State College? Are they any good? I'm going to Trader Joe's or something? Maybe I should Twitch it. You should. I'd love to watch that. All right, look at this stuff. See, it's not sticking to my hand at all, so you know that the gluten strands have been built up really nice and it's not sticky anymore. And it feels good. It doesn't feel too tough. So I think this is about the right consistency I want for a pizza dough. Nice and smooth. It's not lumpy. All the flour has been evenly dispersed. There's a Trader Joe's. That's good. So I'm just going to hold this in one hand so I don't have to set it down. Put a little oil in here, spread it around with a paper towel. Let that drop in there. Grab my plastic wrap. It's an art form to be able to manipulate your plastic wrap without it getting too bunched up. I think I'm getting there. You know, I really don't like... Here's the thing about plastic wrap, or at least the brand that I've been buying, is it sticks really nicely to glass, but not very nicely... Thanks. But not very nicely to metal. And I'm sure that's to do with like the surface energy of the metal versus the surface energy of the glass, and the composition of the saran wrap, and the surface energy of the saran wrap, and things like that. But it doesn't really matter why it's happening. It doesn't like to sit down nicely onto this metal bowl. And I should have remembered that the last time I made dough, I wasn't happy with the seal that the saran wrap made. And it doesn't really matter. I'm sure it would be totally fine if I just let this sit on here and put it in the oven. But I'm just unsatisfied. So if I'm gonna make dough, I'm gonna do it better than this. I'm gonna throw out this saran wrap. And I'm going to do it the classic way, which is to put a damp towel over the top. And the damp towel is ostensibly going to make a nice seal with the bowl, and it's going to provide a nice amount of moisture so your dough doesn't dry out. It'd be a shame if you put all this effort into making a nice homemade dough and it dried out. Again, I think you'll be fine, but for the sake of it, isn't that much more Pinteresty. So let's put this in the oven instead. So I'm going to open my oven up. I'm going to feel my rack. And yeah, not too hot. I think this is a good temperature in here. So I'm just going to put my bowl in there. The oven's off, as I mentioned. I just heated it up a little bit, and then I turned it off like 5 minutes ago. So now it's just nice and warm in there like a little sauna. I'm going to set a timer for like 40 minutes. You really don't need pizza dough to rise that much. I think a couple reasons why that is. One, people are happy with a large range of how fluffy your pizza is. Like, obviously you can make a thin crust pizza and you wouldn't even let that rise really at all. We would just roll it out right now and make our pizza and put it in the oven. I don't like thin crust pizza. I like fluffy, thick crust pizza with that delicious carby bite to it. So I do want it to rise. I could probably get away with like half an hour rising, and I might get bored in the meantime. Glad Wrap 6 better, not perfect, but better than other brands. That makes sense. I do buy a cheap off brand that I'm sure is just plain old, no fancy science on it. But I do want my piece of the dough to rise a little bit, so we're gonna let it rise. And then the other reason is that your pizza is like rolled out flat. So anything that's rolled out flat is gonna rise a lot better than like a big, hunk of dough, like if you're making like a loaf of bread, because those need to sustain all that weight of the dough. So I think you get a little bit more bang for your buck when you're trying to rise pizza dough anyways. So really, don't be afraid if you're like, oh, I don't want to make pizza. It takes so long for the dough to rise, and it's so hard to make it. If you have the right setup, it's really easy to make a fresh dough, and you really can't go wrong. If it doesn't come out super fluffy, just say you're making thin crust pizza, and you're fine. I think I've made a recipe where you just let it rise for like 20 minutes and it's still totally fine. It doesn't come out that fluffy, but that's okay. So that's rising. I think I am just going to do like half an hour probably. So let's talk about the toppings that we're going to put on this pizza. So you need a sauce. I think I bought pizza sauce. Let's see if I bought pizza sauce. I usually don't. I usually forget what I bought, which isn't great. I did. Here we go. Look at this. This is a popular brand, but I don't think I've bought it before. Pastine California pizza sauce. I didn't want to buy this, but it was the apocalypse and there wasn't a lot of brands left. The reason I didn't want to buy this one is it's a huge jar. I'm not making this much pizza. I only need half this for my pizza, and I'm not going to make pizza that often that I necessarily have a good use for the second half of it. So this might half of it go to waste, which is unfortunate. The second reason I'm not really super happy with this one is that it's sweetened with corn syrup. At least it's not high fructose corn syrup, but it is sweetened with corn syrup, which probably means that they are counting on their tomatoes not being super sweet on their own. But it does have a pull-top lid. And as I've mentioned, I will pay money for a pull-top lid to save me a few seconds in the kitchen. Anything to make your dinner preparing experience more approachable, so that you're more likely to prepare dinner in-house, homemade, is worth it in my book. So I am excited for this pull-top lid. Anyways, this is the pizza sauce that we'll use. It's going to add flavor, obviously, but it's also going to make sure that you don't have a really dry pizza. If you undersauce your pizza, it's going to be dry, and you're going to need a glass of water while you have your pizza. I also bought Pastine artichoke hearts, which now I'm suspicious to see if these are also packed with like corn syrup for some reason. I love artichoke hearts. They add a lot of flavor. They're a great texture. Put them on pizza. It's a great idea. If you like artichoke hearts, they're not that expensive. Just buy them. Make your pizza a little bit better. Let's see what's in here. No, they're fine. It's artichoke hearts, water, sunflower oil, olive oil, cane vinegar, which I've never heard of cane vinegar before. Salt and spices. So quartered and marinated. Marinated artichoke hearts. Delicious. Love these growing up. Still love them. They're going on the pizza. The wife's half of the pizza is going to have goat cheese. You guys maybe don't care, but we have this Vermont Creamery goat cheese. That's, I think, one of the benefits of being in Massachusetts is there's a ton of cheese making in Vermont, and they sell it readily in the stores in Massachusetts. So this will be nice. Maybe we'll get back to talking about goat cheese, because I have some stories and tales about goat cheese. But let's talk about the rest of our ingredients first before I get sidetracked. It's got little herbs on the side. Isn't that nice? Look at all the flavor that's going to add. If you're vegan and you want to put goat cheese on your pizza, I would recommend finding a not too sweet, very neutral tasting fake cream cheese to put on your pizza. Like one of those, there's a few brands that are like cashew based. If you put little dollops of that on your pizza, they bake up really nice, and I think it gives you that creamy bite that you're looking for with the goat cheese, I assume, on your pizza. So I've done that a few times. It's really good. I recommend it. let's see. Okay, so that's going to be on that half. My half, you know what we're going to do? You know how I said, I hope I don't let this half of an onion go to waste? I'm not going to. Let's put onion on my half of the pizza. So get our trusty cutting board out. This is from, let's see if anyone on the stream can remember what I used half an onion for before I remember what I used half an onion for and left this. Samosas. Beat you guys to it. Be careful, people get badly cut sometimes. Yeah, I know you're worried I'm going to cut my hands off and you're going to just watch me bleed to death in the kitchen, but I can use a pull top can, trust me. Alright, so we're going to pepper onion. I think I'm going to take off this outer shell still. I think it's a little bit too tough. Alright, so that will be our onion. I'm just going to do what I did last time, which is come at it with some cuts like this. And then there's my little helper guy. But you can't have onion, babe. Dogs can't have onions, so I know you're here to be cutting stuff up, but you're not getting any. So this is going to cut this up really nicely. And get all the onion that we can. And then I'm just going to saute this up. Got my frying pan clean. Going to put a little oil in here. We're going to put our onion into the pan. Alrighty. Make sure it's broken up nicely. Alright, let's start sauteing this up. And then that's not enough. I want some protein on my pizza, and I don't actually know what I'm going to do, so let's go hunting for protein. I have some leftover sausage, which could work. This could also work. What else do we have in here? That won't work. That could work, but I don't want to open that. Alright, here's what we're going to do. We got a lot of options here. We got these frozen frankfurters from Field Roast that I had the other night when we made hot dogs that are really good. I could chop these up and put them on the pizza, and it'd be like some sausage. It'd be like a sausage pizza. That would be pretty good. I have this sausage left over from two meals at this point. I think I made breakfast burritos and meatballs with the other 2/3 of this. I think I'm going to save this. I think I'm going to make probably like biscuits and sausage with this tomorrow or Sunday. I think it's got another couple days life left in it. So we're going to save this for another meal. What I could do, I have leftover samosa filling here, which I think would be pretty fun to put some samosa filling on a pizza. So I think I'm going to make some little balls of this and put it on the pizza. And that will be just tasty. So like a samosa style pizza. Yeah, spicy chicken would be good. We had the rest of the spicy chicken at lunch today. Otherwise, it would be not a bad idea to put on the pizza. Vegan spicy chicken, obviously, boca patties. Yeah, this smells really good. I think I'm gonna do samosa, and do I want to do a hot dog as well? The downside of doing a hot dog is then I'll be -1 hot dogs, and if I want 2 hot dogs for a meal at some point, I won't have 2 hot dogs. So these are big life choices to deal with here. I think I'm going to do that. And I think what I'm going to do with my other hot dog, which is very college-y, is I'm probably going to make instant ramen and chop up a hot dog and do ramen and chopped up hot dog for one of my meals at some point. So that's what I'm going to do with my remaining hot dog now that I have a plan. So this is going back in the fridge. I'm going to run this one under hot water for a second to defrost it so I can get the packaging off. We're just going to cut the packaging off. There we go. You hear the onions are starting to crackle in the background. I'm going to let that just sit there and thaw. I'm going to put the sausage back in the fridge. I'll save that for this weekend. Okay. My samosa, I think, yeah, I'm just going to form this into little nuggets and put it on the pizza when the time comes for that. I'm going to take out my artichoke parts, which are just in quarters right now, and slice those up into slightly smaller pieces so that they're easier to enjoy. There we go. Oh, man. With the marinade and everything. If you're getting artichoke hearts, get them marinated. You can get non-marinated and marinated. Get the marinated ones. Why not, right? I'm going to use all these artichoke hearts because why not, right? I don't have another obvious use for artichoke hearts in the... Unless I made pasta. Unless I made pasta. Then I can put some artichoke hearts in my pasta. Oh, decisions. Usually when I'm cooking with an ingredient that's like a little bit specialty, like artichoke hearts, I'm trying to think like, should I use all of it right now because I don't have a good use for the leftovers and just go for it? Yeah, pasta Alexander. It does use artichokes. It's a great recipe. Boy. Okay, here's what's running through my head. This is super oily, which is great, but now I'm completely covered in oil. I'm going to leave these whole. I'm going to put them on the pizza whole. So now I don't feel like draining all the fluid, all the liquid out, because I actually think I am going to save some of these artichoke hearts. And that'll be fine. I'm just going to toss my onions a second. Get a little char on these. Turn the heat down a little bit. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. Got oil all over this container somehow. I don't know how all the oil came out. I'm just going to dry it off. Yeah, I'm going to save some of these artichoke hearts. Do I have olives? I feel like I bought olives. I feel like I bought a bunch of Italian food. Let me go see if we have olives. No olives, that's okay. That's fine, okay. Alright, I've talked myself out of it. Okay, so we're just going to cut this hot dog up into pieces. I wouldn't recommend putting vegan hot dog, on a vegan pizza normally, unless you buy a really good brand of vegan hot dog that's going to actually be really tasty. There's some vegan hot dogs out there that are totally fine, and I will definitely eat them when I grow up on them, but they're not good enough to put on a pizza. They'll ruin it. But this is a good brand of hot dog, so it's worth putting on. So, don't go out there and make a vegan pizza and put tofu dogs on your pizza and then be like, oh, it's terrible, because you should have known that those don't taste good enough to put on a pizza. Alright. So those are my toppings, and I'm going to turn off my onions. These are nice and browned. We got like 6 minutes left on the dough rising. Do we? Yeah, we got like 6 minutes left. I don't know what else we'll really prep for dinner on this pizza. We got our protein, we got our flavors. I think it's going to be good. So then I will tell you about goat cheese. I'm a big fan of vegan cheeses. Um, and I've seen and tasted how the technology of vegan cheese uh, has developed over the years. What's that roundish thing on my oven? Kind of vase shaped. It's a knife sharpener. It's a magnetic knife sharpener that you can pop out, and then it has those two little conical wheels for sharpening your knives. You see that? Very fun. I don't use it now that I have my fancy knife sharpener, but it's a fun tool. Got nice grips, so you can just, run your knife through there. But I assume you can't get your knives that sharp using this sort of a sharpener. Back to the exciting tale of vegan cheeses. So, I'm a material scientist, not by training, but by my job, not by education at least. I really like formulating new things. And so after eating a lot of vegan cheeses in my life, I thought it shouldn't be too hard. Like, I wonder if the contents of cheese exist in some sort of analog in the plant world, and you can make a really chemically accurate cheese, because it's all just chemicals in the end, and maybe there's some nice analogs or like exact replacements. So I did some research. Unfortunately, some people did some research in the 1940s, especially, and in the 80s, or maybe more like the 90s. There was two waves of research into the composition of cheese. Sorry, my voice is I'm really dry. Too much talking, so some seltzer here. So in the 1940s, people were really interested in what made cheese, because there was rationing. There wasn't a lot of milk products to go around during the war. So they wanted to know if you could make a synthetic cheese, basically, for America. Probably where American cheese comes from, I assume. So there's a bunch of research done into the composition of cheese. And then in the 90s or 80s or something again, probably the 90s, I guess, there was another wave of research because people got into the whole fat makes you fat thing that we had for a while, and nobody ate, and everybody wanted fat-free stuff, and so all these companies looked into what makes cheese again, because they wanted to see how they could make fake cheeses and they could claim that it doesn't have any milk fat or blah, 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 blah. Anyways, there's a lot of really good papers out there on what goes into cheese, what's the composition of cheese. The fats that are in cheeses, which give it the creamy texture and also the flavor, at least part of the flavor, are called triglycerides. So triglycerides are these molecules that have these big, like 3 big fatty glyceride chains. And the length of those chains of fatty acid change the texture of the cheese, and they change the flavor of the cheese. So the longer the chain, the fattier and the creamier and the more neutral flavored it's going to be. And the shorter the chains, the less, the softer the cheese is going to be, and the more pungent the flavor is going to be, because the smaller molecules are easier to break apart and easier to taste, and blah, 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 blah. So there's a distribution of how long, like goat cheese doesn't just have one length of triglyceride in it. It has a range of lengths. And people have studied these things very well. And triglycerides also occur in plants. And so I did some research, and there's also some really nice well-published papers about what the distribution of triglyceride size is in different sort of vegetable fats. So I put together a table of what was all out there and what sources of different lengths of triglycerides there were. And then I tried to design the perfect cheese. So I went with trying to mimic goat cheese at the beginning, because goat cheese has a lot of flavor that comes from the triglycerides, and it's a softer cheese, and it has shorter triglycerides in it. And one of the molecular weights that is a large dominant part of goat cheese that gives the goat cheese a lot of its distinctive goat-y flavor, you can actually get in some plant-based sources. So I actually wrote, or my wife helped me write, a little optimizer so I could say, here's a distribution of fats I want. How do I optimize all the potential plant oils and fats out there in order to match that profile as best as I can? And then I came up with a recipe based on that, which is why I bought everything coinciding really nicely here. Because does anybody remember that bullet coffee thing that everybody was all about, where you would put a stick of butter in your coffee in the morning to give you extra pep and energy? That was a big thing, and I think it's kind of died out at this point. But I was doing this research right around that time, and look what they came up with. MCT coconut oil. This is, MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides. And so what this is a lot of the fats that are in butter are also the fats that go into goat cheese. And the vegans wanted to get in on this bullet coffee thing, but they couldn't eat milk fat. And so this company came up with this nice product that you can add to your coffee to give you that same, in theory, boost. So this has a really nice, narrow distribution of molecular weight for its fatty acids, which made it a great tool to try and mimic the flavors and consistency of goat cheese. So I used this plus, I think palm oil, I think that was the other main ingredient. There's a few nuts that have some like interestingly useful, like macadamia nut, I think has some like nice things. 555, yep. Anyways, so I think I got the fats pretty well nailed, but the problem is that there's still not a good replacement for whey protein. And whey protein is what's giving you a lot of the texture and consistency in the cheese. And I didn't find a good replacement for that, so my research kind of fell apart. The other nice flavor that is in goat cheese pretty strongly is lactic acid. And you can get lactic acid from bacteria, so I also bought lactic acid. It's pretty pungent tasting, and I would say that's probably the point, but I don't think it ever really worked out. So I don't know, maybe another time I'll revisit this. And anyways, look at that, I've killed all the time I need for the dough to rise. So let me stop blathering on about fake cheeses, and let's finish making our pizza. All right, let's check on our dough. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, it's not quite double, but like I said, if your dough doesn't double, that's okay. It's just going to be slightly less fluffy pizza, and that's totally acceptable in America. I do want to preheat my oven for when I want to cook my pizza, and I don't remember what time and temperature I should go for, so I'm going to Google it like I do every time. Pizza recipe, homemade, maybe. I don't know, I have to look this up randomly every single time I do this. Let's see, this says, I think you use a hot. I think that's the thing. I think you're supposed to use a hot oven. Maybe my mom or dad could back me up on this, but I think you're supposed to use a really hot oven to get the best texture for your pizza. And I don't have a pizza stone or anything fancy like that. What does this say to do? Blah, blah, 475. Yeah, hot oven. I'm just going to go 475, 15 to 20 minutes. Or heat up for a level. How long is this supposed to cook? Not for very long, I think. 12 to 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, so we're going to heat this oven up to 475. Nice and toasty. Hot. There we go. $4.75. And my racks are no longer in a good spot, so I'm going to remember to move my top rack down to the middle. So I was broiling something before. Okay. Leave that up while I roll out my dough. I'm going to roll my dough out, kind of. We'll see. We'll see how good I do at freehanding it. I'm going to get my my pans. Here's a trick that I've been doing lately. I have these two pans. One is smaller than the other. And I've been, for the last 6 months or so, been cooking with the big pan under the little pan, which provides a little bit of an air gap and prevents your sensitive dough from getting burned on the bottom before the rest of it cooks. I don't know if that's the right strategy for a pizza dough, but I don't like underdone pizza dough. It's so disappointing if you pull your pizza out and it's not done cooking and you can't really recover it because now the oven's not hot anymore and it's just a nightmare. So I'm going to use that trick here. Still got some tater tot flakes on there. That's okay. So we're going to do this trick. They sell pans that are like literally this. It's like 2 sheets of metal with a little air gap in the middle to prevent your cookies from burning and stuff. But 2 pans on top of each other, if they nest well enough, will work just as well. Then I'm also going to do that stupid trick that you can do to keep your dough from sticking, which is put a little cornmeal down. I'll find my cornmeal. Where is my cornmeal? That's gluten. This is xanthan gum. Cornmeal. Is this cornmeal? This looks a little bit like cornmeal. Nope, that's almond flour. This cornmeal? This must be cornmeal. Yeah, we go. So we're going to do cornmeal on this pan and it won't stick. So I'm going to do a little bit of oil on here. I'm going to just spread that out. Keep seasoning this pan forever with oil, and it's just going to get blacker and blacker and blacker. You know how people season cast iron? I never really got into the whole cast iron thing. Seems like a lot of work, and the pans are heavy. You're not supposed to wash them, so then what do you do if you get them dirty? I don't know. I like my steel pans. So I'm just going to spread some cornmeal out on here. Kind of makes it fun too, you know. It makes it like feel like you're at a restaurant a little bit more if you get your pizza and it's got cornmeal on the bottom, but you cooked it at home. Isn't that nice? I think that's nice. So we're just gonna spread some cornmeal out. This is like literally all I use cornmeal for. I've had this bag forever, and I've used mostly just this on pizza. I don't really make cornbread or anything. Yeah, this is gonna be great. Okay. Got the cornmeal. Now let's get our pizza dough going. So, oh yeah, it's great. Nice and soft. I'm gonna start kneading this. This is a technique that my dad taught me, where you can sort of knead in midair by constantly folding the dough in on itself. And you don't want to go too fast, because then you'll start to see the dough tearing at the top. If you go slow enough and you're careful enough, you won't really tear the dough at the top of the dome. It's tearing a little bit, but I don't really care. Alright, so that's got most of the air bubbles out. Now I'm going to start shaping it into a wheel, a disc, a pizza. And again, you don't want to go too fast. I'm slowing down because you start to see the gluten tearing there. And you want to keep the gluten, kind of intact. And then try to get fancy a little bit, letting its own weight. sort of drag it down. You could roll it out, of course, but if you're making pizza, why don't you stretch it in midair, you know? I'm not an expert or anything. I am tossing this a bit, though. Here, I'll give you guys. Not that I'm any good at this, but I might as well show you what I'm doing. So this is giving like centrifugal force to sort of pull the dough out. Also, like, I don't know, I don't have any good pressure techniques, but I like to shake it a little bit to let it stretch out. So you know, for pizza you need a somewhat a resilient dough, otherwise it's going to fall apart. So it needs to be stronger than like a bread dough, a little bit less moisture than a bread dough. Yeah, this is nice. I like to make sure that I make a little bit more dough than I need, because I don't like having to worry about not having enough dough to stretch it out real thin. Alrighty, this is stretched out, I think, enough to really commit to putting it in the pan and doing a little bit of work by hand here. So we're making a square pizza, because I have a square pan. There's no shame in that. Pizza Hut, do they do square pizzas? Who does square pizzas? Papa John's? Probably Pizza Hut, isn't it? And I said I wasn't going to roll it, but I usually do come in with a rolling pin at the end because my rolling pin is exactly the width of my pan. So it's nice to just go in at the end and get it nice and squished out. There we go. The hard part, of course, is getting it into the corners because the dough wants to be round and it wants to pull in, but if you just be patient and put a little elbow grease into it, you can fill your pan up. It'll be just fine. Oop, spilling. This happens everywhere. Get that into the corner a bit. Get that into the corner a bit. There we go. Can't see the pizza. Oh my god. Sorry, guys. There you go. Is that better? Does that see the pizza? See how my rolling pin is the exact thickness of my pan? It's very exciting to have things work out that way. Alright, that was pretty good. We really couldn't ask for a better result than that. Put the pan in here. Alright, so now let's do our sauce. Pop this open. And get my spoon. Let's put the sauce on. So I'm gonna use like about a half a can. I like to make sure that the sauce goes right up to the edge. You know, if you're like at a restaurant, you wouldn't go right up to the edge necessarily because you want that like fluffy little edge going on. But nobody wants, I don't want. I mean, maybe you do, but I don't want the edge of my pizza to be dry. So I put sauce all the way up to the edge so it doesn't get too dried out in the oven. A little bit more sauce. It's about half a can that I'm using here. You can spend all day trying to make it look even. But once it cooks, you're not going to be able to tell that your texture that you're putting it down on wasn't totally even. So don't worry about that too much. Just make sure there aren't any egregious gaps, and you're fine. I think a spoon is the way to go to level this out. A knife is going to be too awkward, and spatula's too much worth getting your utensil dirty, so that was fine. Okay, then we're gonna do, I'll do my side first, I guess. What do I want to do first? Let's do, I don't want to put cheese on here. I do have some like vegan cheese. I could, no white wall tires. No white wall tires. Who has white wall tires? Let's do hot dog. Space this. I don't think I'm going to do cheese on here. I could do cheese. Have some cheese, but it's not like in the shredded. You know what I'm going to do? I'll do this. I have this follow your heart vegan Parmesan that I like. What you call a pizza with not enough sauce on the edge. Oh, that's a good tip. Thanks, Dad. White Wall Tires. I have this vegan Parmesan that I like, but I haven't been eating it fast enough. So I'm actually going to put this on my pizza. You wouldn't normally put Parmesan on a pizza, I assume. I am not a expert in non-vegan cheeses. But you know what? Let's just now it's actually a really cheesy pizza. Wasn't gonna, but now it is. There we go. That's what you get. And then I got my samosa. I'm just gonna put some clumps on here. This is gonna dry out in the oven, so this is gonna become a little bit more. They'll turn a little. I'm hoping they'll turn into little like nuggets of delicious samosa flavor. Unconventional pizza here though, but if you're working with your leftovers and all of your leftovers taste good and they're all savory and delicious, I don't think you can really go wrong. There we go. There's this restaurant in Somerville called Veggie Crust, maybe? I think Veggie Crust, yeah. And it's owned by an Indian couple. And they have a bunch of Indian, and it's a pizza joint. And they have a bunch of Indian flavor inspired pizzas, which are delicious. So if you ever in Somerville, Massachusetts, hit up Veggie Crust. Actually glad I didn't cut these up. These aren't really in quarters. These are more like, they're pretty small. So I actually probably would have cut these up a lot anyways. So let's get some artichokes on here. Yeah, I'm not using the whole container. That would be too much. Alright, these are good. Okay. That's my side of the pizza. My wife likes a much simpler pizza. It's just going to be goat cheese and pizza sauce. So we're just going to cut open this goat cheese. I'm just going to use half of it. There we go. The other half, find a container for this that you can live in. Is this a container? This is a container. Here we go. Put that in the fridge before I forget. Oven's preheated, just heard it. Preheat. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut this in half and then chunk it into some chunks. Maybe break these in half and spread them out on here. All these herbs are delicious, I am sure. They smell great. Okay, this piece of... My wife really doesn't like vegan cheese, so I'm just gonna make sure that there's a nice demilitarized zone in between the two sides. Okay. And this is gonna bake for like, I don't know, 12 minutes or something. I'll check it after about 12 minutes probably. But I think I'm gonna end the stream here because you can basically see what the pizza looks like. So that's what we're having for that chili. Would be good on pizza. Yeah, I bet it would. But yeah, this is what we're having for dinner tonight. Hopefully everybody else has something good for dinner tonight too. Thanks everybody for watching and have a good weekend. Happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully you cook something fun this weekend. Thanks. Bon appetit to your Trader Joe's food too. Bye, guys.